You were raised to believe that strength was something gentle, something polite, something earned by being agreeable. But the truth you were never told is that the world doesn't reward gentleness. It exploits it, bends it, uses it as leverage against those who carry it like a virtue. Every moment you softened your voice to avoid conflict, someone else learned exactly how far they could push you without resistance. Every time you apologized for existing, they realized your sense of worth could be negotiated. Every time you lowered your standards to keep the peace, they understood that your peace was cheaper than their convenience. And once a boundary bends, it doesn't return to its original form. It stretches, weakens, cracks. This is why the same patterns of disappointment replay themselves with eerie precision. Why the same people keep taking more than they give. Why your loyalty becomes a burden instead of a bond. Why your silence becomes permission for mistreatment. You were not weak. You are untrained, unguarded, walking into a world governed by strategy while you operated on emotion. But that script is being burned now. From this moment forward, the reconstruction begins, not of the man society molded, but of the force they never anticipated. There will be no sentimental path, no comforting illusions. Only extraction of weakness, insertion of clarity, tearing down of illusions, and the cold rebirth of presence that demands respect without asking for it. This is the entry point to a version of you they will not be ready to face. You must understand that everything in your life until now, your habits, your reactions, your insecurities, your hesitation, was programmed by environments that never had your elevation in mind. Families taught you to be agreeable, to keep the household calm. Schools conditioned you to obey without questioning, to raise your hand for permission to speak, to move only when instructed. Friends rewarded you for being available, even at the cost of your own progress. Partners praised your vulnerability, not to support you, but to access you more easily. You learned to reveal too much, too fast, to people who never earned the right to know you. You learned to justify your boundaries as if they were inconveniences you owed apologies for. You learned to react emotionally because no one taught you the power hidden in stillness. And every time you apologized for things that weren't your fault, someone learned you were a man who could be shaped by guilt instead of principle. But a strategist learns a different truth. The moment you justify yourself, you hand over authority. The moment you raise your voice, you expose the wound. The moment you react impulsively, you reveal the blueprint of your weaknesses. Your rebuild begins with a new foundation silence, not the silence of fear, but the silence of command. That silence is where control is born, where the old patterns die, and where the new version of you begins to operate with intention instead of impulse. There is a version of you buried beneath the polite surface, a version you've kept chained and hidden because the world convinced you he was dangerous. This version remembers every humiliation you minimized, every disrespect you laughed off, every moment someone spoke over you and you swallowed the sting. He remembers the nights you replayed conversations in your mind, wishing you had spoken with more force, more clarity, more certainty. He remembers the opportunities you didn't take because you feared judgment, the confrontations you avoided because you feared conflict, the goals you abandoned because you feared failure. You buried him because they told you that part of you, your fire, your ambition, your cold logic, your hunger was too intense, too sharp, too threatening. But here is the truth you were never allowed to hear. That version of you is not the monster. He is the architect. He is the blueprint for the man you were meant to become before society sanded down your edges and called it maturity. Your darkness is not a flaw. It is compressed energy, potential in its rawest form, a storage room full of fire waiting for direction. Every betrayal you endured, every time you were overlooked, every time you held back your truth to protect someone else's comfort, these things didn't break you. They built a reservoir of intensity. When you suppress that reservoir, it rots into bitterness. When you train it, when you give it purpose, when you give it a mission, it becomes a weapon in the hands of a disciplined mind. This is the version of you that doesn't rely on external validation because it generates its own authority. This is the version of you that doesn't chase approval because it recognizes its own value. This is the version of you that doesn't flinch in the face of challenge because it sees challenge as a crucible, not a threat. The world told you to kill your dark side, but the strategist knows you do not kill the dark. You weaponize it, refine it, and let it fuel the man you must become next. Your emotions have been treated like prison guards, locking you into patterns you never chose, but they were never meant to be your jailers. They were meant to be your tools. Society taught you that reacting is honesty and restraint is suppression, but that was a lie designed to keep you predictable. A man who reacts instantly is easy to manipulate. A man who takes everything personally is easy to provoke. A man who allows his emotions to explode unfiltered becomes a puppet pulled by anyone who knows the right string to tug. But here is the shift that separates the impulsive from the powerful. Emotions are not commands. They are signals. Anger is not a detonator. It's a map pointing towards something that must be corrected. Fear is not evidence of weakness. It is information about where skill must be built. Sadness is not a pit to drown in. It is depth that sharpens your perception of the world around you. A strategist practices emotional precision. That means refusing to bleed where predators can smell it. If someone insults you, the old you would flare up in defense, exposing the wound. The new you pauses, questions why they felt safe enough to speak that way, and uses their outburst as data. If someone lies to you, the old you internalized it as a personal injury. The new you observes what they needed to hide and why deception was their chosen strategy. You stop treating every emotional sensation as a truth carved in stone and start treating it as weather passing through your mind. You remain still at the center. This is the emotional posture of a strategist. Calm on the surface, calculating underneath, never denying feelings but refusing to let them drive the vehicle. You are not becoming cold. You are becoming controlled, and control is the foundation of unshakable identity. Observation becomes the next evolution of your transformation, a hidden engine behind every strategic move you will make. Most men enter a room hoping to be accepted, scanning faces for approval, adjusting their tone to fit in, desperate to be seen as agreeable or likable. But a strategist enters with an entirely different mission. You do not walk in to be noticed. You walk in to notice. You become the quiet center of gravity that studies what everyone else overlooks. You begin to read people not through their words, but through their leaks. The tremor in a voice trying to sound confident, the overcompensation of someone laughing too loudly, the shifting posture of someone who feels threatened by your silence. These are not random quirks. They are psychological footprints, revealing insecurity, ego, instability, or hidden motives long before someone tries to disguise them with carefully chosen words. A strategist watches who interrupts the weak and who grows silent around the strong. You notice who dominates conversations out of insecurity and who avoids confrontation out of fear. You analyze how people respond to silence, because silence is where truth lives. The insecure fill it. The arrogant fear it. The perceptive respect it. You learn to spot the patterns that most men never see. Tone shifts when truth approaches. Eye movements when lies are forming. Micro-expressions when someone's mask slips for half a second. You do not use this knowledge to manipulate. You use it to navigate. A man who reads a room accurately never needs to force his presence. He becomes the one others cannot predict, the one they cannot get a read on, the one whose silence feels like evaluation. This is how power operates, not with noise, but with awareness so sharp it unsettles those who cannot hide from it. To operate with precision in a world built on performance, you must master the art of controlled identity. You were told your entire life to just be yourself, but that advice was designed for men with no ambition and no understanding of how power actually moves. The truth is simple. No one rises without mastering masks. Masks are not lies. They are strategic presentations of different facets of yourself, revealed only when useful and concealed when necessary. A man who shows his whole identity to everyone is not authentic. He is exposed. And exposure is vulnerability. The strategist understands that perception is leverage, and leverage is control. So you begin crafting identities with intention. Sometimes you wear the mask of the diplomat, calm, patient, listening more than speaking, letting others believe they are in control while you gather information. Sometimes you wear the mask of the phantom, quiet, unreadable, giving nothing away, letting people project their assumptions onto you while you remain 3 moves ahead. And sometimes you wear the mask of the lion, decisive, forceful, authoritative, revealing power only at the moment it is most effective. This is not being fake. This is being fluid in a world where rigidity is punished. A man who cannot adapt is the man who becomes predictable, and the predictable man is the man predators feed on. Masks allow you to manage context. They allow you to maintain mystery. They prevent others from mapping your internal world, from decoding your intentions, from targeting your emotional weak points. You become a controlled narrative, not an open book. You speak less, so people listen more. You reveal little, so your presence weighs heavier. You deliver your intentions only when they can no longer be countered. This is how strategists move. Never broadcasting, always calibrating, letting others underestimate, admire, or fear you depending on what the moment requires. Authenticity is not sharing everything. Authenticity is remaining loyal to your purpose, not to the emotional impulses that sabotage it. Boundaries become the skeletal structure of the man you are becoming, the framework that holds your power in place. Most men fail not because they lack ambition, but because they leak energy in 1,000 quiet ways, answering calls they don't want to take, entertaining conversations that drain them, saying yes out of guilt, agreeing out of fear, and offering access to people who have no respect for the weight of that access. You were conditioned to believe that kindness meant availability, that loyalty meant self-sacrifice, that being a good man meant being endlessly accessible to everyone who tugged at you. But availability is the opposite of value. What everyone can reach, no one respects. The strategist understands that boundaries are not walls, they are filters. Every boundary you draw is a declaration. My time is earned, not assumed. My attention is selective, not automatic. My presence is rare, not routine. And when you adopt this posture, something fascinating happens. Those who secretly fed on your lack of limits begin to expose themselves. They get angry. They accuse you of changing. They demand explanations. But their anger is proof of their entitlement, not of your wrongdoing. From now on, the word no becomes a blade you wield with calm precision. No apologies attached, no explanations offered, no guilt absorbed. You stop negotiating your standards with people who bring nothing to your growth. You stop allowing nostalgia to keep you tied to relationships that drain you. You stop giving emotional CPR to people who refuse to breathe on their own. Your boundaries will offend the weak because the weak rely on your lack of them. But the strong will respect you for them. And soon you will look around and notice the shift. Your world becomes quieter, lighter, cleaner. The energy vampires fade. The distractions disappear. The manipulators reveal themselves by collapsing when your access is removed. You are not becoming harsh. You are becoming discerning. Your life is no longer a public hallway. It is a fortress with locked gates, guarded by your standards. And within those gates, only those who contribute to your mission may enter. Not everyone who walks with you deserves to stand beside you, and the strategist understands this with brutal clarity. Most friendships are built on convenience, shared distractions, or mutual weakness, not on alignment, loyalty, or vision. You were encouraged to collect people the way others collect trinkets, to surround yourself with anyone who made you feel accepted entertained, or validated. But what most men discover too late is that a crowded circle often hides the absence of true allies. Some people want you close because you're easy to predict. Others want you close because you make them feel superior. Some stay because you ask for nothing. And some stay because they know you won't outgrow them as long as they keep you comfortable. But comfort is the enemy of evolution, and a strategist does not build his future with people who fear their own. Your circle must be forged, not inherited. You must begin evaluating the people around you with the same precision you apply to your ambitions. Who challenges your thinking instead of flattering your ego? Who holds you accountable instead of enabling your excuses? Who stays loyal in silence, not just in public? Who supports your vision instead of fearing it? When you ask yourself these questions honestly, the answers cut deep, but they cut true. Many of the people you call friends are not allies. They are anchors. They keep you grounded, not because they love you, but because they fear what happens if you rise without them. But a strategist understands the necessity of shedding dead weight. You do not need people who make your life comfortable. You need people who make your purpose sharper. This does not mean you become cold or heartless. It means you become selective, intentional, and strategic. You begin structuring your circle like a war council, not a social club. The ones who gossip about others will gossip about you. The ones who fear your growth will sabotage it. The ones who mock discipline will never defend your purpose. Remove them. Replace them with individuals who sharpen your mind, elevate your standards, and guard your blind spots. Your future depends on the gatekeeping of your relationships. An empire is not protected by sentiment, it is protected by alignment. From now on, your connections must serve your mission, or they are severed. Silence becomes more than absence. It becomes your weapon, your shield, and your psychological pressure point. Most men cannot tolerate silence. They see it as a void to be filled, a discomfort to be escaped, a sign that they are failing socially. So they ramble, overshare, nervously joke, or rush to fill the air just to avoid feeling exposed. But silence is not exposure. Silence is leverage. Silence makes the insecure reveal themselves. Silence makes the arrogant overplay their hand. Silence makes the dishonest stumble into contradictions. When you master silence, you master the battlefield of conversation without saying a single word. It becomes your unseen advantage. You begin using silence deliberately, not accidentally. When someone challenges you, you don't rush to defend, you pause. The pause itself becomes a mirror in which they see their own insecurity reflected back at them. When someone tries to provoke you, you don't rise to the bait, you wait. And in that waiting, they reveal more than they ever intended. When someone tries to manipulate you with emotional pressure, you don't explain or argue, you remain still. Their frustration exposes their motives. And when someone expects you to fill the air with justification, you hold your ground. Because the moment you explain, you subordinate yourself. But the strategist knows that the man who speaks the least controls the most. Your voice begins to carry weight, not because it is loud, but because it is rare. When you speak, people listen not out of courtesy, but out of curiosity and tension. Your silence becomes a signal that you are observing, calculating, measuring. It makes others second-guess their assumptions, question their own behavior, and wonder what you're thinking. This psychological ambiguity is power. It grants you presence without effort, authority without aggression, and respect without demand. You do not dominate the room through volume. You dominate through stillness. You become the storm that gathers quietly before striking with perfect precision. Discipline becomes the final crucible in the making of the strategist, the invisible architecture that supports every transformation you've built so far. The world is designed to weaken men through convenience, cheap pleasures, endless distractions, instant validation, and the seductive illusion that comfort equals success. But comfort is a slow erosion, the quiet assassin of potential. Every time you choose the easy path, you dull your edge. Every time you indulge a craving over a principle, you surrender a piece of your throne. And every time you postpone the work that builds your future, you strengthen the chains that hold you to your past. The strategist rises above this by reconfiguring discipline from punishment into identity. You stop treating discipline as a temporary phase and start treating it as a permanent requirement. You train not for aesthetics, but for control. You study not for applause, but for advantage. You work not for validation, but for sovereignty. Every denial of impulse becomes a brick in your inner fortress. Every moment you resist short-term gratification becomes a vow to your future self. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, you become a man whose will is stronger than his moods, whose focus outlasts his fatigue, and whose standards crush every excuse. There is no finish line. You don't get to retire from the work that makes you powerful. The moment you stop sharpening the blade, rust begins its quiet crawl. The moment you assume you've arrived, decay begins. The strategist lives in a state of ongoing evolution. Each victory becomes the new baseline. Each accomplishment becomes the new beginning. You rise, refine, rise again. And eventually, you realize the truth that separates the powerful from the forgotten. The strong do not maintain power by force. They maintain it through relentless self-reconstruction. Even if everything around you collapsed tomorrow, you would rebuild faster, sharper, colder, because the infrastructure of strength is now inside you, not around you. You are no longer shaped by circumstance. You shape circumstance. You are no longer reactive. You are directive. You are no longer the man searching for a path. You are the force carving it. And now comes the moment that divides those who merely feel motivated from those who transform. If something inside you awakened, understand this. That voice is not adrenaline. It is recognition. It is the suppressed version of you stepping forward, demanding its rightful place at the forefront of your life. Do not silence it again. Do not retreat into old habits. Do not negotiate with the weakness you just outgrew. From this point forward, you rebuild yourself with precision, silence, discipline, and intentional fire. You become the man whose presence shifts rooms, whose boundaries command respect, whose silence unsettles the unprepared. You become the strategist, the force, the storm that moves without noise until impact becomes unavoidable. If you are ready to rise into that version of yourself, then no more hesitation. Comment below. I rise as a strategist. Let the world hear your declaration. Like this video to reinforce your commitment. Subscribe to Machiavelli Protocol because you are not here for entertainment. You are here for transformation. Activate the black bell of discipline and step fully into the identity the world never prepared you to wield. This is no longer motivation. This is your blueprint. And the world will adjust to the man you become next.